So remember, the way that this thing is set up, you always get those three sections that you're taking a look at. This first section up here where it mentions television, this part here is going to be kind of more of your intro. The one down here where it says make sure, this is more of like the rules, the little reminders and things. This middle part is the one, though, that you're going to pay the most attention to, because that's going to be that overall prompt that we have to answer. Notice here 3 sources that you would be incorporating, because that's the standard procedure that would be showing up on an AP exam. 6 sources is a little light. I think you're more likely to have 7, but there's not. I don't recall any prompts where it actually drops below 6, where you don't have like 5 or something along those lines. This was never an actual prompt on the AP exam. This was like a sample one that they gave, that they passed out, not passed out, but distributed, made available right before the synthesis took place. So it's dated in a little sense where I tried to kind of tweak it a little bit to make it maybe a little bit more relevant for us. Television has been influential in the United States presidential elections since the 1960s, but just what is this influence and how has it affected who is elected? Has it made elections fair and more accessible, or has it moved candidates from pursuing issues to pursuing image? Carefully read the following 6 sources, including introductory information for each source. Then synthesize, and remember, synthesis, blend, create, build, something along those lines. Synthesize information from at least 3 of the sources and incorporate it into a coherent, well-developed essay that argues the extent to which television and similar streaming video technologies has had an impact on the United States presidential elections. So, argues the extent to which television, video in general, has had an impact on U.S. presidential elections. Not arguing whether it's been good, not arguing whether it's been bad, just basically arguing the extent, the impact that it has had. So you're not looking at a value, you're not looking at an opinion. TV should be removed from presidential elections, it should be done more so, but you're simply trying to come more of a fact-based argument as to this is the impact that it's had. Make sure your argument is central, use the sources to illustrate and support your reasoning, avoid merely summarizing the sources, indicate clearly which sources you're drawing from, whether through direct quotation, paraphrase, it should say or summary, not just or period. You may cite the sources as source A, source B, etc., or by using the descriptions in parentheses. Presidential elections, TV. First things that come to mind. Bias?
Yeah, on news channels.
Okay, so like the idea of Fox News versus CNN or MSNBC and all that kind of stuff, all right? So, okay, I don't like this anymore. I don't know what it's doing. So not so much what the candidates are putting out themselves, but the way that we talk about it. Yeah. Like with the news outlets and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so examples, CNN, Fox News, etc. Okay? And the bias influencing vote?
Yeah.
Okay. Morgan? She love those commercials. What would be like a term that we would use to describe? So, not the idea of candidate A championing what he or she has done, but vote for me because that person's a despicable human being. Degrading. Yeah, good. Hopefully not, because that's good. But, you know, in theory, thinking MS. What's the term? What are you slinging? Mudslinging. Okay, so like, yeah, campaign commercials. So comparing like 2019 to 1919 or 1819? Okay. Very good. We're getting upset now. So, like, positive for,
Yeah.
you said educated.
Yeah.
Okay. So an educated electorate, and especially compared to, say, like early 1900s or late 1800s. I'll go late 1800s. Funny, you get that eye test. You're squinting again. I get new glasses in a couple weeks. And they're not bifocals yet.
How things run more on emotions now than they did, like before all the speeches were, you had to record them, so there was like, these speeches and they were cut out, and debates are happening, and it's more of like, less of a debate, it's more of how many people can I get excited about.
Okay. So more emotional, more reactionary kind of approaches. So an emotional approach. If you were taking like a classic rhetoric, which you kind of are now anyway, what do we call that? Emotional appeal? Not ethos. Ethos is the credit. It's pathos. So yeah, there's a lot of pathos that's going to be taking place. I don't know why you're doing that. I'm not trying to make it say good or bad because we don't have to do that, but it would be just more of like the change in approach. So more reactionary, less kind of calculated. And you brought up the thing where it comes to we have debates that are now taking place. And you could have debates before. I mean, you had famous debates before when Abraham Lincoln was running for Senate. There was the Lincoln-Douglas debates of the 1850s that are well known, famous, so they're still occurring. But certainly now you got a wider audience appeal. It's certainly more of a stage production that would take place. And we even have things when you get into especially the Democratic debate or the Republican debates within the primaries. You got so many people. We got like groups of debates that will take place. I think it was the Republican primary debates last election that were being held in Cleveland. They had on TV one group, and then they streamed another group. So if you wanted to watch, Johnny in the debate, you had to go to do a Facebook Live or go to foxnews.com to watch it occur. It wasn't on the main TV channel. What's the subliminal message? Not really subliminal. What's the message that's coming across with this one? You're not as important because you're not on primetime TV the way that everyone else was going to be. They also, and I assume this was on purpose as well, they showed camera angles for the debate. Not only were you not going to be on TV, but there wasn't allowed to be an audience. So you have this group of like 8 people on stage, and they would do camera angles, not the whole time, but every now and then that would show the audience, or really the lack thereof. So here's Johnny, Alex, and Shay having a political debate, and nobody is watching or is allowed to be there. And again, it was kind of you're not really important enough for people to be there, so we're just going to kind of remind Virginia of this while she watches the debate. But then when you had, when Ted Cruz was there, when Donald Trump was there, that's when you were letting the people in. This was going to be like the 8 o'clock thing.
Different like channels and different broadcasting ways just like make money or just get better ratings.
Okay.
Because more people are gonna watch.
And I mean, and it's certainly going to be an impact with ratings. You would hope to think. Well, I guess why would you hope that people would watch presidential elections, content, shows, whatever? Like, what's the main purpose? And that's what you were kind of going with the whole idea Izzy mentioned education. The idea that you're going to educate. Really, what do ratings rely on? Probably more so than being educated. Still another E term. It's not to be educated, but it's to be entertained. So with ratings becomes entertainment. Question could be, does that kind of dumb down or take off, a kind of shine, a luster that would be going to the whole presidential process? Again, it's not something that you have to clearly state. This is why it has been good or bad, but certainly it could change some things. Can you think of any way in which presidential elections have become entertaining, besides Morgan being happy when she sees these mudslinging commercials taking place? Okay, so yeah, there's certainly going to be more of a social media presence, and I would say President Obama was probably really and part of it also was just the timing. Probably one of the first presidential candidates to really use social media. I forget the number, but it was what Donald Trump has had it was thousands upon thousands of tweets since he's been in office. I don't remember what the number was. It was a lot. It was a large number. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, PBS, ABC News, CBS News, NBC News, all those traditional TV formats usually you think of with elections. What other TV circuits, rounds are you going to make if you're running for?
Well, I was thinking like Saturday Night Live.
Sure, you're going to have parodies that are going to be taking place on Saturday Night Live. And, depending upon who you are, Izza could be watching, these biased networks that Hannah mentions to be educated. You also could have someone, Morgan's just sitting up at night, Saturday, watching TV, and then you have Alec Baldwin come out becoming Donald Trump, or, years ago, Sarah Palin, when she was part of the vice president ticket with, I think, McCain's ticket at that point. You had, depictions of her being done. Sarah's still shaking her head, all these years later afterwards. And in some ways, that could be how people become educated about it. Not only could you have yourself being parodied on Saturday Night Live, but as a candidate, what might you want to do with Saturday Night Live? Pardon? You could parody other people. If you're, but as a candidate, to really get your face out there. I don't want Izza making fun by trying to be me, or I don't want Grace trying to be me, but I could host it. Do you see guest appearances? Do you see candidates on Jimmy Kimmel Live? Do you see candidates with Jimmy Fallon? Do you see candidates with Stephen Colbert? Absolutely. So that TV, it's certainly a way to kind of get your face out there, whether it be traditional news networks or these things over, where it's kind of more in that entertainment realm.
You know more about what's going on in the world in general? Like if a newspaper comes out once a week, and then television happens all the time, like 24/7 news, then you know a lot more about what the candidate is doing, and so it's just much more information.
Yeah, because if you go back to compare it to the late 1800s with that educated electorate, sure, I might know what's going on with the newspaper, but the newspaper technically is going to be old news, like literally yesterday's news. And you would certainly have some things where it was morning editions, some things where it would be afternoon editions. But if I'm watching, the news breaking story, big red, lights are flashing, I know what is going on currently, assuming that, the bias is being neutral and all those kinds of things, as Hannah was pointing out, that you could have influence in that way. But yeah, you would be more, in theory, at least up to date with what is going on.
I don't know if this came from television, but there's a lot of merchandise that is coming out now, with the Make America Great Again hats.
Mhm.
And a bunch of shirts.
Mm-hmm. I think as you and it kind of brings this up here in the top part of the prompt. Influence, has it affected who's elected? Has it made elections fair and more accessible? Has it moved candidates from pursuing issues to pursuing image? And I think certainly with this image idea, that's where a lot of the merchandise comes in. I don't think merchandise is brand new to once the 1960s and TV became more accessible, you'd always see pittance. I don't know what I was trying to say. Maybe pins and buttons. We'll go with that one. Buttons and things like that. You would certainly have slogans and posters and whatnot, but it certainly becomes more accessible, becomes more viewable. I like that hat. I want a hat like that, and now you have those opportunities to get it. So it's certainly, if anything, it helps you broadcast that image more so. How many TVs do you have in your house? Emily, good for you. I mean, I have a TV in my garage. You can park the car, put the TV on. No. But if I'm in there for a couple hours, I'll put it on. And even if, and it's not so much how many TVs do you have anymore, it's more of how many screens do you have now when it comes to tablets, laptops, phones, and all those kinds of things. So you're seeing those images more, you have the ability to view those. So yeah, I think that has certainly started to happen quite a bit. Any other thoughts? Sounds good.
This is more of a question, but are we supposed to answer the questions that are up in the intro?
This stuff up here, you don't have to answer these questions. I would say they are trying to kind of like funnel you into looking at a certain point a little bit. So you would not be required to take a look at, strictly one body paragraph being about image, another body paragraph about has it being fair or has it more accessible and things like that. It certainly gives you a place to start with. And I think going with probably one or two of those would be a good idea, because if they bring these concepts up within the opening, there's a good chance the sources are going to kind of go along in that range. You're not going to get a 2 in evidence and commentary because you only did one of the 3 instead of like all 3 of them. But I think it at least kind of gives you an approach to take a look at, as opposed to you simply going, TV has been good just because, or bad because I don't like watching campaign commercials. At least this gives you more abstract concepts that you can view. Fairness, accessibility, image, things like that. I would say this one is a little more cut and dry than what they tend to have in that introductory information, where it is kind of focus an idea. The nice thing about this prompt is, while you might not want to be political science majors in a couple of years when you're going to college, you're at least familiar with TV, you're used to elections. Morgan's seen campaign ads since she was like 5 years old, because it was always around. So if there is a ton of information that could potentially be going on in your head, it gives you a way to kind of narrow it down to those topics. But you're not restricted to just going with those things.
So do you always think when we get census prompts, we should start to write out what our own thoughts are before we dive into this?
Yes, I would, and that's why we did this here. I would want to try to, and again, I mean, you're going to be doing this in 15 minutes, which is different than, hey, let's spend 3 days talking about this. Couple things. If by you coming up with your own ideas, I think it gives you a better chance of being in control of where the prompt goes. It gives you a little bit more ownership, of the essay. If I jump into the sources right away, I don't want to feel like I'm going to write about this only because source A mentions it, source B mentions it. Now, let's say we come up with these ideas and source A and source B also mention them. I don't take that as a negative. It's sources are mentioning it too. Shucks, I wanted this to be my own original idea. If you're still coming up with it and the sources are coming up with it, it means you could probably expand upon what the sources are simply saying. If a person goes, this is what source A said, this is what source B said, this is what source C said, that blend of information is not happening. There could be a prompt, in the wind energy, the wind farms that we looked at a couple of weeks ago, there could be a prompt that maybe you are not familiar with the topic at all and you have to use the sources. If that's the case, you got to read the sources to just kind of figure out what's going on. But hopefully at some point you're still kind of brainstorming your own ideas. The most important source is your brain, your head, your ideas, and then you're using this to kind of help. Think of the sources as validating your argument rather than you simply just communicating what it is the sources have to say about it. And again, if they include the source, it's a valid source. You don't have to worry about trying to judge, should I use that one? That's a web blog versus a newspaper article or something like that. If they include it, they're all equal in merit and all that kind of stuff. Any other questions? Those are all good. The biggest problem that will happen, most likely, for like the synthesis that you're going to do, or any of them, would would be if we were to, and I want to do this to your essay, but if we were to take a Sharpie and black out every reference that you make to the source material, is there still an argument? And if there's not an argument, it's source dependent. If there is an argument, there's probably a better chance of that synthesis taking place. Has television reshaped politics? So, taking a look at this one, following passage excerpted from an article about television's impact on politics. Who's got a fancy reading voice today? It's boring when I read this stuff all the time. Popcorn reading stupid. Ethan, why don't you do this one? Just read the story for us. Thank you.
The advent of television in the late 1940s gave rise to the belief that a new era was opening in public communication. As Frank Stanton, president of the Columbia Broadcasting System, not even the sky's the limit. One of the great contributions expected of television lay in its presumed capacity to inform and stimulate the political interests of the American electorate.
All right, I'm going to pause you right there. What's the Columbia Broadcasting System? CBS. So it's network. This is why I stopped. Okay, so you're dealing with one of the big networks that took place. Presumed capacity to inform and stimulate the political interests of the American electorate. That sounds pretty similar to isn't what you were kind of talking about, where, hey, a farmer might not know about things. So TV certainly has the impact to spread information. All right, so already, and this again is not a bad thing, the first paragraph of the first source is already even kind of starting to align with ideas that we were mentioning. Ethan, you want to keep going?
Sure. Television, with its penetration, its wide geographic distribution and impact, provides a new, direct, and sensitive link between Washington and the people, said Dr. Stanton. The people have once more become the nation, as they have not been since the days where we were small enough to know his elected representative. As we grew, we lost this feeling of direct contact. Television has now restored it.
All right, well, let's do the next one then, please.
Gotcha. As time has passed, events have seemed to give substance to this expectation. The televising of important congressional hearings, the national nominating conventions, and most recently the Nixon-Kennedy and other debates have appeared to make a novel contribution to the political life of the nation. Large segments of the public have been given a new, immediate contact with political events. Television has appeared to be fulfilling its early promise.
Okay, thank you. Anything you like from that source where you see that as could be useful? And it could be like a word, it could be a phrase, it could be a general idea.
It's going for the positive reshaping.
Okay, yeah, certainly it seems to be kind of looking at the benefits. And I would say probably what would be like the greatest benefit, the most significant benefit for the way that this article would present it? TV's ability to educate and like reach the public, you know, so you have like widespread accessibility kind of taking place. So it makes things a lot more accessible than they were before. Wide geographic distribution and impact provides a new, direct, and sensitive link between Washington and the people. Certainly would kind of reinforce that idea. Anything else you like? Or dislike even, you know?
I think that another thing they're talking about is that like people feel like they know their candidates as well now a lot more because like it talks about how like as we grew we didn't really feel like we had like direct contact with the candidates and they were like independent.
Okay, so you feel a link or a connection to the candidate. And chances are, if there is something about the candidate that you like, you're going to be more prone to vote for him or her. And it could be something, it certainly, you know, could be viewpoints on policy. I'm sure for some folks it's going to be, I like her haircut. That looks like a president. I'm going to vote for that person. And, you know, we're kind of going, but that's certainly the main part of it. And it's one of those topics that, you know, you're asking about that introductory information. Image becomes a big part that you look at. Can you think of any presidents from the past that if they were alive during a TV era would not be elected? thinking? Yeah, I think it's certainly, and even before you get into the whole political, can you imagine the mudslinging campaigns that would be taking place in the 1860s Civil War era and all that kind of stuff? You know, it would make today look very, very tame. Is a 6'4", gaunt / ugly person going to get elected president? Speaking voice also had a different pitch than what people kind of expected. It's debatable. You don't want to say no, he would completely lose, but it's certainly a possibility.
The one person that was in a wheelchair still with his chest up. Was it Theodore Roosevelt?
Not Theodore Roosevelt.
No, Franklin. Yes.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Does he get reelected during a war in a wheelchair? I don't want to say probably not, but
Yeah.
it's certainly potential because of the circumstances. You need to lead the nation.
Yeah.
Is this a person who's going to do it? Immediately, from a visual standpoint, some people would certainly say no. So that whole image concept can certainly play a big part in how it can change, the overall landscape. We're going to keep the sources, keep the prompt, keep that stuff available. We'll start taking a look at it tomorrow. Go tomorrow, get through all the sources. Go then for Friday, take a look at how we can integrate those sources with our own ideas.
I know. I just had that moment when you said it's Friday, we're gonna do this. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Wednesday.
It's already Wednesday.
It's already Wednesday. Which piece of comes second?
Taft.